Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to wait a few minutes, but welcome to the NOAA Central Library. We're hoping a few more people trickle in. I'm Katie Rowley, the outreach librarian who's going to be doing all of the webinar side of things. Sorry, I have a cold, so my voice sounds very low and gravelly right now, but Jay is going to start talking in probably another 2 or 3 minutes.
Correct.
We're just going to wait a little bit. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. This is Jay Standring. I'm the ProTech branch chief. Once again, it's great to be back here at the NOAA Library. I just checked out 2 books. You can have them for a month, so there's a plug for the library. You're welcome. I'll take my $5 later. Thank you. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes today with you just reviewing the status of the ProTech program. I don't think I'll take the entire hour, so we can give you some time back for lunch or work, whatever you're doing. But I'll stay till 1 o'clock as long as questions keep rolling in. And with that, let's go over to the next slide. Oop. Okay, so first up on our agenda, this brief is intended for all audiences, so there's nothing source selection sensitive about it, and it's just an update on the ProTech program. So basically, this is where we tie in ProTech and AGO, certainly to the Department of Commerce strategic plan. We're hoping to advance innovation, where you see that under the Accelerate American Leadership, and also increased investment in the US with enhancing job creation. Obviously, we hang our hat here on NOAA under strengthening US economic and national security and reducing extreme weather impacts. Next slide. So I don't need to read these to you. These are our NOAA primary objectives, obviously, weather, economy, and fisheries, resource management, and science. Okay, these are long-standing challenges of NOAA. These should be no surprise to anybody as well. We anticipate future budget tightening, although we haven't had it recently. We have around 12,000 civil servants, but a lot more work than those 12,000 civil servants can accomplish. So we rely on around 4,000 contractors to get our mission accomplished every year. And we need partners, small and large companies that understand our mission and will partner with us in NOAA in carrying it out. 2/3 of our budget is used to buy products and services under contract. A large amount of money. Civilian agencies spent $158 billion on services in FY18. I haven't seen the finalized numbers yet for FY19, but they're equally large. So the ProTech program is under the Strategic Sourcing Acquisition Division located in AGO. So what does AGO do for you all at NOAA, right? We balance the mission and fiduciary duty, support the mission, seek efficiency and effectiveness, operate with integrity and transparency, protect the public interest. And here is what we want to do as we're evolving over time. And it's part of the reason the ProTech program came into being. We want to move from just service delivery to core competencies, providing the NOAA line staff offices with the assistance you need, all the way through the contracting lifecycle, build those partnerships, and expand acquisition just beyond contract formation to assisting with the management of the contract over its lifecycle. What are the AGO challenges that you're aware of, right? So no surprise, before I became an 1102, before I transferred into the contracting community with the government, I was a program guy working for the Navy for about 8 years. And here are some of the things that we didn't do well. And it's no surprise that some of the offices in NOAA don't do well either. We're here to help assist with that. Requirements definition and validation, looking at IGCEs or developing IGCEs, market research, and buy analysis. When I was a program person, I didn't really want to do anything else for contracting other than dust off my old statement of work, change the date, give it back and say, give me more of what I want. Now don't waste my time. And hopefully you don't need me to do the evaluation because I have no time to do that, right? That was my program focus in the Navy. Understand that, right? So part of the ProTech program is we have a PMO, a program management office, where I have account managers for each of the domains and also some support staff to help out with that IGCE development, to help out reviewing requirements. And we can do that for all the program offices, line and staff. We also assist the different acquisition servicing divisions, and we can do it at any time in the process, as far out as you want to start thinking and talking. As you can see, the transactions, we had a kind of steady state, except for the FY19 numbers. I don't trust those numbers. I do not believe that our workload has been cut in half from about almost 10,000 transactions per year. I don't have better numbers than that. I have to dig into the numbers that I got, but that's what I had. So I'm going to stick with it until I can prove it wrong for right now. But the other things we're going to focus on too is spend analysis, sourcing, streamlining where we can cut out time in the acquisition timeline. Look, there are certain requirements and processes and requirements that we have to follow, but if there are ways we can do things smarter and better for NOAA, we're going to go ahead and do that. And I really like the idea. I went to a Department of Homeland Security Department of Homeland Security Procurement Innovation Laboratory recently, and one of the directors there said, what he always listens to is when the programs say, you know, you need to fit the speed of the need. So this is basically the godfather of ProTech, Mitch Ross, our retired AGO director from some years past. This was his great slide that kind of explained to everybody where ProTech was going. Between capabilities, where if you started to look for higher competency and also probably higher cost, you had talent, niche, and basically kind of critical areas where we're going to find people. If you were looking for, and I'm not dinging on just buying supplies and services, right? But if you're just buying chairs, that's in the lower left-hand quadrant there, right? Where it should be lower cost, kind of a routine commodity, kind of easy to do. If you look over the business model, ProTech is up in the right-hand quadrant, right? We're client-driven. We want talent. We want the companies to attract talent. We want folks who can know and understand and complete the NOAA mission with us. And that's going to be a best value idea. It's not always going to be, as you see in the lower right-hand quadrant, the LPTA, the lowest price technically acceptable solution. We are, and we have stated such, that we're willing to pay a little bit more to get better contractors, to get better solutions for ProTech and for NOAA. The idea started in 2012. That's when the acquisition plan was approved by Department of Commerce. We are partnering with small and large firms. And Mitch was, one of his favorite sayings is the last bullet there, a race to the bottom, and he meant LPTA over time hurts everybody. So here was the solution. We are the strategic sourcing program for NOAA for professional and technical services. We are a mandatory program for NOAA, and I need to change my slide now. We were designated as a tier 1 category contracting vehicle for the Department of Commerce. We are mandatory for the department to use. Do I really expect the Department of Commerce to use ProTech? Well, given some of the mission areas, oceans and fish, perhaps not. However, there might be some areas where between satellites and weather, there might be some possibilities. Certainly, we've reached out and we're working with the Office of Space Commerce and Commerce on some requirements, and we'll see if that grows over time. We are a mandatory program for NOAA, and I can show you later on the website where we have our mandatory policy posted and all the details that are there. There are 5 domains. They're aligned with the NOAA mission areas: oceans, fisheries, weather, satellite, and enterprise operations. And basically, this was our buzzword from a couple of years ago, right? Providing cadre of partners, helping out NOAA with the environmental intelligence capability of the US. So for each of the domains, the large IDIQ awards that we do have a periodicity of 5 years. It's a 2-year firm period followed by 3 one-year options. However, task orders awarded in any one of those can have a 5-year period of their own. So that means if somebody has a requirement and you work with your Eastern or Western Acquisition Division Servicing Acquisition organization, if you award a task order in that 5th year, that 3rd option year of ProTech, that task order could last 5 years as well. So we're talking a very long-term partnership that we have with these companies. We have a $3 billion total ceiling shared by all the domains over the 5-year period of performance. And we are going to work with all the NOAA clients, line and staff offices, to gracefully transition contracts that were precursors to ProTech to fit under one of the ProTech domain contracts in the near future. So here is the status of the program currently. Satellites was awarded in June 2017. It has been rocking and rolling. Fisheries, September of 2018. Oceans was awarded as soon as the government shutdown was resolved in February of 2019. We recently, yay, awarded the weather domain. That was about 2.5 weeks ago. So we're going to have our post-award ceremony here on Friday here at NOAA. So I'm very excited about that. And there was a change in the enterprise operations strategy. and that's listed on the website in the homepage, and we can go through that. Here's a brief synopsis. Enterprise operations was seen as more of the kitchen sink of NOAA. It was the common user services across all line staff offices that were less scientific, program management, financial, budget, etc. Around the time we were really digging into the enterprise operations domain, we realized the statement of work was frankly just too large, and we had very real concerns about getting it evaluated or awarded in a timely fashion. So we tried to consolidate the statement of work, and as we did, we ramped it down from about 140 areas down to about 90, and it still frankly was too big a sandwich to bite. So as we scratched our heads and thought, how are we going to make this happen? We went down and talked to our cohorts at the Department of Commerce, and Commerce said, we are going to come out with a Department of Commerce mandatory vehicle for these common user government services in the future. So don't come to us and ask for approval on something that we're going to do for you anyway. So we might have to go ahead and change the enterprise strategy. So we said, fine, when is your vehicle going to come out? And at that period in 2018, they said, we're not certain really when. So our question obviously was then, how do we still support NOAA in those areas? And they said, just go ahead and do BPAs and smaller contracts, maybe GSA vehicles, whatever you need to accomplish NOAA's mission until our vehicle comes into place and becomes mandatory. And so that's what we're doing, and I'll show you that on the website as well. So how do we help you? In the ProTech PMO, I have a dedicated domain account manager who's also the core at the IDIQ level, who's assigned to each domain, as well as an administrating contracting officer. And between the two of them, that team works with the acquisition servicing divisions and the programs all across NOAA to help define those requirements, take a look at spend analysis, and try and see if we can do things smarter and better. We already talked about the IGCEs and data analysis and spend and cost analysis. We provide training and tools to the NOAA clients and AGO. That's part of what I'm doing here today, but we're paid to walk and talk and listen, right? So we will come and meet you, and we try and do client engagement places in different NOAA locations, at least 2 per year per domain. Now that the 4th, the weather domain, has been awarded, we'll see maybe if we consolidate some of those trips and maybe make it more respectful of both the vendors and the NOAA people's time. Maybe combine some of the things where we have a domain presentation in the morning somewhere and one for a different domain in the afternoon. Stand by for that in the future. We're going to take a look at where it can streamline oversight and process improvement, and I can talk about that in a little bit, and cost savings as well. And we engage heavily with the ProTech prime domain contract awardees. We meet with them fairly frequently at their request. So again, this just kind of shows you what we're doing with the PMO and how we interface kind of in the middle. We're here to help everybody out. We have no timeline when you have to reach out to us. Reach out to us anytime. My team is very responsive. If they don't respond the same day, they'll probably respond within 24 hours, and we are simply here to help. So I want to talk a little bit about teaming on the fly, because I know some of the contract companies, the vendors who work for NOAA are concerned about that. This is a concept that was in the program initially, and the idea was, if you do not win a ProTech Prime Award, you are not shut out of NOAA work for the rest of your life or for the rest of ProTech. If you still bring value to NOAA, if you have expertise in an area where you think you could help out, you can still approach some of the primes and basically propose to team with them on some of that work. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. We basically publish on each of the domains all the companies in a POC, email and phone, so you can reach out to them to propose teaming. And actually, we have experience. There are companies who did not win NOAA Prime Awards in some of the domains, who then were not very happy, but they went ahead and they proposed teaming with other companies who did win Prime Awards, and they have been successful in performing on those task orders. So this concept actually works in real life. I'll also show you where a quarterly report is, where we report to DOC quarterly. It's a 3-month look back, obviously, because it's the last quarter, on all the task orders that we have awarded, to include the company and how much it cost. We also have a forecast there, but I'll get into more of that as we show the website a little bit more as well, because we have more up-to-date information on some of the domain-specific pages that we have. So some of you may be aware of the ProTech acquisition alerts. These are approved by Jeff Thomas, and they are direction to the AGO acquisition divisions. So the first one was the ProTech Streamlined Acquisition Plan. It was released in late May of 2019. It's mandatory for ProTech task orders that are above the simplified acquisition threshold and below 75 million. You may be aware the simplified acquisition threshold was increased to $250,000 recently. This is a Department of Commerce approved form. It's only 5 pages. Out of those 5 pages, 1 page is a title page, 1 page is a signature page, 1 page is your milestone acquisition schedule page. So really it's just 2 pages of data. Some of them are easy tick boxes and simple fills, and then there's a page that's dedicated to whatever narrative is necessary for the acquisition plan. Coming from the program side of the house some years ago for me, if you told me as a contracting officer that I had a $75 million requirement and the acquisition plan was only 5 pages and really only 2, I would have kissed you. Okay, so we're hoping that this streamlined acquisition plan helps folks save time, both for the acquisition servicing divisions and the programs. Acquisition 1902, the mandatory use policy, was released in July of 2019, and that makes ProTech mandatory for services above the simplified acquisition threshold, okay? We also have an exception waiver process, and I can show you where to find those on the website as well. The links are there if you see the presentation. We have a small business reserve feature for each of the domains, and the idea here was that there's going to be a goal that 75% of the contract awards in each domain at the IDIQ level would be for small businesses of some shape, form, or fashion. So as you can see, satellite domain, the first domain to be awarded in June of 2017, exceed that goal slightly. They had a 78% that went to small businesses. Fisheries domain almost met the goal, around 71%, and that was in September of 2018. Oceans domain did not meet the goal. It was exactly 50% large, 50% small. However, that was not a surprise. We had identified that in the acquisition plan due to historical spending, so there was not a whole lot of churn or problems with that when we announced that that was how the awards were going to be awarded with this 50%. And then weather domain, which we just awarded, is around 59%. Again, kind of fell under the 75% goal, but it's a goal. But I'll talk about small businesses a little further, which may allay any fears with that. Okay, so this is our ProTech website. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I hope you do. There's lots of good information there. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so this next page, though, is a typical domain page detail. This one happens to be for satellite. So each of the domains will have these sub-pages with a procurement forecast, contract holders, task areas, labor categories, and their master contract. Some of the other pages may have other links that those domains found important. The procurement forecast is as much information as we can release that is accurate and that can give the companies time to decide whether or not that's something they want to go after and whether they want to spend their bid and proposal dollars and hours after that, and whether or not they want to start seeking teaming arrangements with other companies if they want to do that. The contract holders, again, when I talked about teaming on the fly, that's where you're going to find the prime companies listed in their POC information in case you're a company that wants to team with a ProTech prime. The task areas and labor categories, if you're looking to take a look from a common sense standpoint, does the work that I need to get done fall into ProTech? You can take a look at the task areas and see if it falls under there. This is no surprise. We made some of the task area language generic on purpose so that we could find most of NOAA's work to fall under a ProTech domain that would be within scope. That's on purpose. That's to help you all out. And the labor categories are listed there. We have an internal ProTech website that the public can't see, and that is information that's really AGO specific for the contracting officers and in Eastern and Western and other AGO folks, where they can actually start to see other costs and things that are really more specific for them. Okay, can we bring up the website real quick?
So I have the wrong domain?
ProTechServices.noaa.gov. So sometimes maybe if it's in your browser already and it has been refreshed, so maybe just go to the new. Oh, there is that it? Perfect. There we go. Okay. So a couple of things I want to point out here. So if you'd click under resources, please, and go to templates. And if you could click under acquisition planning. Yep, there you go, more info. So this is an example of where you can find some of the great resources we have here for folks both in the acquisition servicing divisions and the folks in the larger NOAA community. So when I mentioned the acquisition plan, the 5-pager, if you see the third row down, that is the 5-page ProTech mandatory use simplified acquisition plan. And there's both a Microsoft Word version and a PDF version. You don't have to click on it. I just want to tell folks where to go ahead and find it. If for some reason you think your work does not go under ProTech and you're working with your acquisition servicing division to do that, on the top row there, that's where you can find the ProTech waiver. Okay, if you can go back up one and go over to the About pull-down page, please. And go to News and Events, please. So the news and events section is where we just have things that we thought important to shove out to the public, and it's all posted here, and we hope you get a chance to go through it. But what I want to click on is under 8 July, the more info for the Acquisition Alert 19, it should say 02. This is the mandatory use policies. So if you have any questions about where the mandatory use policy is, it's right here, and there's a link to it right there as well. So I just have a couple of generic comments about ProTech, and then I can turn it over to anybody for questions. I see we're doing good for time. So our current spend as of the end of Q1 fiscal year 20, we're spent about $465 million, which is about 15.5% of our ceiling, of our $3 billion ceiling. So we still have a little bit over $2.5 billion left. So I think we're doing fine there. As of the end of FY20 Q1, we've had a total of 67 task orders awarded for a total of $22,583,000 in change. And that above number does not reflect any of the minimum guarantee sent to all ProTech primes. For FY19, satellite domain had 5 task orders awarded at around 12 million. Fisheries domain had 26 task orders awarded at around 10 million. Oceans domain had 27 at about 389,000, but that actually also includes 24 minimum guarantees. So Oceans Domain had 3 task orders in FY19. Not a surprise, because when did we award the Oceans Domain again in 2019? February, after we got back from the government shutdown, right? So if you award something this major in basically Q2 of the fiscal year, there's a good chance that your planning for most of those requirements has already happened, and we weren't expecting a large volume in Oceans for FY19. Hopefully that will increase in FY20. My folks conduct domain scope reviews and capabilities analysis for anybody who requests it. It's really more for the acquisition servicing divisions who request it, because we provide that data to them, but this helps out them and their NOAA clients in the different program offices. In 2019, the fisheries domain, my ProTech PMO conducted 67 scope reviews or capabilities analyses with an average time to answer the client of 3 days. Already in 2018, they've done 8, and the average response time to the client was 1.1 days. The satellite domain in 2019 did 18 with an average time to answer the client of 3 days, and the oceans domain in 2019 did 28, average time to answer the client 4 days. What I'm highlighting here is we're not even a speed bump, okay? When you come out and ask us for data, we get it back to you in fairly rapid fashion, right? So we are not going to drag down any time in any acquisition cycle. For satellites in both the oceans domains, as of FY20 Q1, all the task orders in the satellite domain, all the task orders in the oceans domain have all been small business set-asides and awarded to small business. So the NOAA Small Business Office is very happy. The OSDBU at Commerce is very happy, and the SBA is very happy with ProTech so far. Fisheries domain had about 85% of their task orders awarded to small business, and that's actually a pretty healthy number as well. And so with that, I think I'm done, but so I'm subject to any questions you have, and I guess we can take them online or in person.
Does anyone in the room have a question?
Can you have cross domains on the same contract?
Can you ask it through the?
I'm with the Weather Service. Can you have cross domains for satellite and weather?
So the question was, can we have cross domains, in case you didn't hear it, for the same requirement? So the short answer is no. The idea is that a requirement, once it's decided with your Eastern or Western Acquisition Contracting Officer, once you decide what domain it goes into, it stays in that domain. However, as you've seen, it took a while to get some of these contracts awarded, right? We had a lengthy acquisition process. No, by the way, thank you to everybody in NOAA who helped out doing the evaluations, because I realized what a lengthy and extensive and time extensive process that was. You all did a great job. A lot of them took around a year, if not longer, for various reasons to get from RFP close to award. So we knew all along that some requirements would go into a domain where it didn't really belong, but we had the capability because, again, some of the task order areas are written a little bit big on purpose, so we could say it's within scope. So we just get that requirement into ProTech under ProTech 1.0, and it might find its more natural home under ProTech 2.0. But you could certainly work with your contracting officer if the requirements really need to be split out and have, let's just say you're in a weather domain, if the correct decision is to have some of that work in weather domain, that could be a task order in the weather domain, and if the correct decision for some of that work is to be in a different domain, that could happen as well. That's the coordination you have to have with your Eastern and Western acquisition task contracting officers.
Awesome.
Did that answer it? Good. Okay. Yep.
Okay, we have a couple questions online.
Absolutely.
I'm going to start with something easy. One of the online viewers missed the threshold for the simplified acquisition. Can you repeat what that threshold is?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the simplified acquisition threshold used to be $150,000. It was increased to $250,000. So ProTech is mandatory for acquisitions above the SAT. It is called first consideration for acquisitions under the SAT. So that means if you have a requirement that's under the SAT, and that's the full total value of the contract over the period of performance for time, if that's under $250,000, you work with your contracting officer. It's first consideration for ProTech. They have to consider it, but it is not mandatory.
Great, thank you. Okay, are universities, NGOs, and state local government agencies eligible to become ProTech awardees?
So you're only going to see the prime awardees on the domain pages in the public site, right? And that's the prime. That's if you need to contact them, that's who you reach out to. What you're not going to see on the public site is the team, and a lot of those prime awards are not just the single company, they're a team, and it could be any number of organizations and companies. Who does see that data? We have a ProTech internal site that the SSAD site hosts, and all the folks in AGO who have access to that can go in and they can see who are on the teams. But the short answer is yes, NGOs and companies and universities are also on those teams.
Great, thank you. So last question that I can see.
Okay.
For small business set-asides, some appear to be further restricted to certain socioeconomic categories, and they list a few. It's helpful to see that breakout as well, and to have advanced information on set-aside by socioeconomic categories, so we don't pursue a TD that ultimately we can't pursue.
Got it. Okay. So I understand where you're coming from, because that sounds like it's a NOAA contractor, right? Oh, maybe one of the ProTech vendors. So what we're trying to do is twofold. There are a little bit of cross purposes, but I think what we're doing still makes sense. So we've been working very hard with the program offices and the acquisition servicing divisions to produce a forecast as far in advance as possible that's accurate and that will help the companies take a look at the forecast and say, do I want to spend time looking at that requirement or pursuing it? Do I want to put a team together that I already have it and going after it, or do I want to develop another team to go after it, right? So the idea about the forecast is to put that as far enough in advance, whether it's a simple data, you know, let's go, can we go to a forecast? Let's go up to satellite, just back up one, and go to click on satellite, and then click on the procurement forecast, left-hand side in the blue bar, please. So here's the forecast, right? And so basically what we're telling you here, you can see the FAPS data, the domain it's in, and all, by the way, all the forecasts follow this same domain format, data format, so it's easy to understand. We're giving you at least a requirement description. And this is a plug for all you folks out there in NOAA land. The more descriptive data you put into your FAPs, the better off it is, the more accurate it is, and can really help the contractors understand what the work is going to be. We try and get the anticipated award, whether or not it's a new requirement or a follow-on, who might have the current contract, and then a link as far in advance, if we have it, for the documents that could be accurate, whether it's a draft statement of work or a draft RFP. This is the forecast. If we had an idea of how we were going, but we hadn't decided yet, right, whether it was going to be full and open for all businesses in a domain to compete, or whether it was going to be a small business set aside, either small business or further restricted to women-owned small business or hub zone or SDV OSB, we may not be able to release that because that hasn't been decided yet, because the forecast is a forecast well in advance of that. So we may not, frankly, just know by the time we get the forecast out. Once that decision has been made, and that's still through the normal NOAA acquisition processes, right? Once that's made, we can hopefully get that data out to folks. And so how does that happen? So my domain contracting officer, the administrative contracting officer, is in contact quite frequently with the contracting officers in that domain in Eastern or Western. And so as soon as we're able to release stuff to them and say, hey, we think this is coming out soonish, or if we need to kind of give a date range, and whether or not it's going to be a set aside, that contracting officer in my PMO will push that out to the folks in the ProTech pool so they know about it, right? So that's how we kind of do that, and sometimes the data is just not going to catch up in time. So some of that stuff is done via email. What we've tried to do also for the domains is, let's just say a task order competition has been decided and it's going to go to a woman-owned small business in the satellite pool. The task order CO will send it to the women-owned small businesses in the pool, and they're the ones who are supposed to respond. But either that task order CO or our domain satellite CO will send it as a courtesy copy to all the other companies in the domain, so they all have viz on what's going on. Hope that helps.
I think it did. As you were talking, we got some more questions.
Well, good.
Are there requirements for those organizations that are teaming or subcontracting with a ProTech awardee?
So not other than the normal requirements. So the small business have to do at least 50% of the work.
Sounds good. Is the ProTech system expected to increase the cost of contracts due to reduced competition or extra overhead from teaming?
I'll have data for you to talk about that in about 2 more years, because I don't have the data yet for satellites to be able to say that. It's as some requirements have changed over time, the one-for-one comparison for ProTech task orders compared to other contracting vehicles predecessor to ProTech is not as easy as I would have liked. So I simply don't have that data yet. It's going to take a while for my staff to get that data in, take a look at it, crunch the numbers to really give a fair comparison.
How often will the forecast be updated? This forecast shows fourth quarter of the last year.
Yep. So frankly, the satellite domain COs and the account managers are going to update the forecasts, frankly, as often as necessary, which kind of gives me an out, right? If I said monthly, I'd probably be lying to you, because some of them probably should change monthly and will. Some of them simply won't require that because we haven't developed any more requirements than what you see, right? Always feel free to reach out to us to see if that's the latest. It probably is. We're having a little bit of an access problem this week, unfortunately. So there actually is a weather domain forecast, and there are 3 or 4 or 5 things that could be added to the oceans domain forecast. Because I can't get those posted to the website probably this week, hopefully they'll all be updated by Tuesday. In the meantime, my domain COs are going to push out those forecasts to the ProTech vendors in those domains, so they have viz on them, and then hopefully we'll get the issues fixed. Eventually, and this is looking down the road a piece, right? I'd love to see us be able to formalize and automate the forecast system so it's done by AI, right? So it's kind of actual real-time speed. Maybe we'll get there.
Thank you. Okay. The SAB has finalized the similarities situated contractor rule. NASA and others have implemented the small business similarity situated rule now. Will ProTech consider applying it as well?
So I don't think we're not doing it. So as far as I know, and hopefully Jeff Hale's listening because he's our small business guy, so he can jump in and correct me, or Natalie if she's out there in the netherworld as well. So the SSE thing, so I think the person meant SBA, Small Business Administration, has what's called a similarly situated entity rule. And so that means, let's just say you're a women-owned small business, you're supposed to do 50% of the work. As long as you get another women-owned small business in, you may not be doing 50%, you may be doing, I think, 40, and you can count their percentage against that 50% because they are a similarly situated entity. You're both women-owned small businesses. I think that's how that's applied. If I'm wrong, Jeff, please shoot me. But I think we're already doing that. And I'll tell you what, whoever that was, please email me, either jay.standring@noaa.gov or to the ProTech Services website email address you see on our website, and I will get you the definitive answer.
Awesome. Okay, and I'm going to grab one more question. How will ProTech support veteran-owned business and service-disabled owned businesses?
So I think in each of the domains, at least in satellites, weather, and oceans, we have at least one SDVOSB that's a prime awardee. I'm pleased to report we have 3 SDVOSBs that were awarded in the weather domain. So already you've got 2/3 more chances for things to go SDVOSBs in the weather domain. How many ProTech prime contracts we awarded in each domain was really more of a function of how they were all evaluated technically, right? And what value they brought to NOAA. We tried to make sure, obviously, that we had competition across all areas of the statement of work. And then we also did look at representation to try and meet that 75% small business reserve feature for all domains. I hope that answers the question.
I hope so too. I did want to say there was one more question, and I hope I have the right screen up.
Okay.
How can academic and nonprofit institutions approach a ProTech Prime? And they wanted it up on the screen. Do I have the right pages?
You do, absolutely. So on each of the, thank you. So the question was, how does an academic institution or somebody else approach a ProTech Prime to try and start that conversation marketing yourselves? So again, for each domains on domain pages, we have a contract holders list, and that's all the data that is there for you. We don't get in the way. We don't tell you how to do it. And some primes are a single company. Some primes are a company with a team already established. So I don't know how responsive they all will be, but you have the tool to get there and go talk to them and make those connections, and good luck.
Awesome. We have a few more questions, but do you want to take them now? Or?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Unless there's any questions from the group here? Yes.
Oh.
What are the grounds for waiver? Some examples of waiver. Have any been granted so far? And then the third related question is, what percentage of NOAA contract spending do we think is going to end up falling under ProTech?
What percentage of NOAA spending? I want all the money that doesn't go to NOAA Link. No, I'm joking. I simply don't know that. That would be a real guesswork. But to answer your question, I think I've processed 6 waivers to date. I'm pretty proud of the turnaround time there. We put in the policy, and we'll go back to the waiver to show you it. We'll show you actually, because we have some good common sense things we put in place for the mandatory use policy. But they came in. I think for most of them, my average response time was 2.4 business days. So in the policy, we actually tell folks, if you come into the ProTech program for a waiver, and if we don't respond to you in 10 business days, go forth and do great things because you haven't heard from us. We are not going to be a roadblock if we don't respond, but we're pretty responsive. So if you would go to resources, templates, acquisition planning. So let's go to the exception and waiver process. Hopefully that's what I want. So we have a waiver process that basically tells you how to do this, okay? And I think I showed you already the mandatory use policy outlines this as well, and that's back in the news events section. Okay, so take a look at step 1, right? So if you come to us and say, is it within scope? And the answer we say is yes. Then, and of course, right, we already said that by design, the ProTech task areas were a little bit vague, so we could say that almost everything's within scope, right? That's almost an easy yes, but that's where we wanted to get to, right? So then we basically, if you have common sense stuff here, right, these are called parity, you never have to talk to us at all, right? So if you're doing stuff under FAR 19.8, which is the 8A program, the stuff that's in 8A is supposed to stay in 8A, not our issue. If you're doing architecture, engineering services, mostly like construction, that's nothing to do with ProTech. If you're doing IT stuff, right, whether it's NOAA Link or its future predecessor, rather its future follow-on contract, Nimitz, that's not us, right? So if you're doing those issues, that's just nothing that concerns ProTech, right? So you basically, if you see step 3B there, go ahead and move out on those vehicles. You need to talk to us about it, no waiver required, right? Because that's common sense stuff. Now, if none of those situations apply, you go down to the no, right? We have some more other common sense situations, right? Emergency operations. We're not going to get in the way of a acquisition sourcing division working very speedily, right, with their NOAA clients to get stuff done that are actual emergencies. Same thing with things that address national security. So remote locations. If there is no ProTech vendor, way the heck in some island off of Alaska somewhere, if there's no ProTech vendor there, but there is a contractor that's been doing work for NOAA, you don't have to force that contractor to partner with a ProTech contractor to get the work done. That's remote location. And your task order COs know this process and know that they can basically document the reason not using ProTech for that reason, and they just come to ProTech and just hey, here's what I did, right? No waiver required. Other sources required by statute, priorities for government supply sources, like Unicore and all that other stuff, and then single award IQs or BPAs, right? If it meets those, you don't have to do a waiver, you just let us know about it. For everything else, you have to come to us for a waiver. And as I said, I haven't disapproved one yet. Realistically, will one get disapproved? Yeah, sure, probably at some point. But I haven't disapproved one yet, and we've been pretty fast in our response time.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, we're also, legal services do not come under ProTech as well, just so you know.
Okay, I am going to read one last question.
Sure.
I hope I get this right for the person who asked and for everyone here. Can you explain how this is a cost-effective for the taxpayers when there's teams of businesses? It seems like there's more businesses for the money to travel to in order to reach the contractor's paycheck.
So I can't explain that. I think that would be adequate to what I think you're getting at, because I think this is a philosophical kind of conversation. We put in place the multiple award IDIQs, so we would expect to have competition, right? And so that's part of the tenets of the government's contracting process, and by the rules we live as 1102s in the federal acquisition regulations and policy in the government is competition drives good solutions at a better cost. That doesn't mean you're not going to pay higher prices in some areas for some things, right? But the idea is that the competition certainly helps. That's probably my best answer for you. And hey, we're taxpayers too, right? So, and that is one of the functions, by the way, of your contracting officers. We're not just the people with the warrant who can buy things. We're your business advisor. We're supposed to do things that are in common sense and a good reason for the government to do it. It's our fiduciary duty. And if we can't make a good business case solution for doing something, we probably shouldn't be doing it. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Jay.
So you've got 10 minutes back. Thank you for coming out on this rainy day if you came outside. If not, well, I will see you within a year or so. Thank you for your time.